What's up, War Report family? We are back with another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. You guys know the deal. Joining me, as he always does, is my guy Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered to talk about their latest power rankings. Chris, Auburn didn't play last week, but again, you moved them. This is 2 straight weeks you moved Auburn. Before we get into that, man, catch us up on your travels this week. I think you were in Athens?
I was in Athens, and first things first, I'll say this, Mike, appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure. I always look forward to this segment where you and I get to chat, talk a little SEC power rankings. But I hate to tell you, I had a lot of fun in Athens, Georgia. It was a blast. The people were great. It's funny. You know, in real time, I knew there was barking going on around me, but I didn't notice just how much. And I've gone back and started to watch some of the vlog content. I'm like, man, this entire background noise is just pure barking. So, no, it was a lot of fun, though, man. It was a great time. Game was awesome. Sanford Stadium was electric. And we'll be headed this weekend to Austin, Texas for the Texas-Kentucky game. A game that Texas should handle. It may not be one of our most dramatic visits, although I seem to bring that everywhere I go, but wanted to make sure we made Austin a stop this year and never been out there. Obviously, my only other stop to the Lone Star State was Dallas for Media Days a couple months ago. So first time ever in Austin, man. I've heard great things and looking forward to it.
Well, I'll tell you this. We're going to get into the power rankings here, but a lot of people doubting the Georgia Bulldogs coming into this matchup. I'm still a Georgia believer. I think that even with all the problems they're having with drops and with Carson Beck throwing it to the other team, Chris, look how supremely talented is this Georgia team that they can play through all that and still be in the conversation for one of the best teams in the country.
Mike, what we saw from Georgia Saturday night should terrify the rest of college football.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Because what Georgia showed, even like you mentioned with their imperfections, like I still don't think, you watch them offensively, guys have got to step up around Carson Beck and help him out. Like receivers are dropping too many passes. There's things with Georgia, running game can still be an issue here and there. But if they don't shoot themselves in the foot, Mike, they're still a team that you look at as one of the 2 or 3 best and a team that can absolutely win the national championship. And if in the playoff, you got to go to their place, dude, I get, people can say whatever they want about Sanford Stadium. That place was an electric factory Saturday night. Like, it's a hard place to play, just like every other SEC venue, especially if it's under the lights. Like that was as good as an environment you'll get in college football. So, like I said, Mike, I think the rest of college football should be very nervous about what they saw from Georgia. And if they're able to get it rolling offensively, if Carson Beck's able to play like 75% of what we saw on Saturday night, the Dogs are still there, man. The Dogs are still for real. They're still a national title contender, in my opinion.
Yeah, let's. We're going to get into playoff scenarios, but not before we take a look at last week's power rankings. Last week, my guy Chris Phillips, you had Texas 1, Ole Miss 2, Tennessee 3. We all saw what happened there in Athens when Tennessee visited Sanford Stadium. South Carolina 4, Alabama 5, Georgia 6. Obviously, they made a move. Texas A&M 7, LSU 8. Whew, man, the fall of LSU will be studied. Missouri 9, Arkansas 10, Vandy at 11. Now, you had Auburn at 12, and I joked about you moving them up on the bye week. They moved down without playing as well, too. Florida with a huge, monumental win. Good God, Billy Napier is, I think, man, this man should get some sort of award. We should create an award for Billy Napier surviving this season. Mississippi State at 14, Kentucky at 15, OU at 16. Let's take a look at the updated Week 13 power rankings. Woo! South Carolina at 3? My friend.
The Cocks are hot. The Cocks are hot, man.
Sounds like a great time to mention that this episode of the War Report is brought to you by our friends at Joy Mode. Visit tryjoymode.com. If your cock is hot, Try Joy Mode has you covered. 20% off plus free shipping with code RAPPORT. Imagine a supplement like your favorite greens pack that you put in 8 to 6 to 8 ounces of water 45 minutes before you do the do, or you do what Chris is talking about, and bam, Let the magic happen. Tryjoymode.com. Use code report for 20% off plus free shipping.
I was just trying to segue you into that ad read, man. That's it. That's it.
No, you do a fantastic job, my friend. Again, South Carolina at 3. Now, I know you were impressed with their win over Missouri. But look, let's talk about this. South Carolina over Georgia at this point?
Listen, Mike, part of the power rankings, like I mentioned before we got going, do I think South Carolina top to bottom is better personnel-wise than Georgia? No, probably not.
Understood.
But again, there's nobody in the country right now who I think is hotter than South Carolina. Like, you could argue they're playing some of the best football of anyone in the country. And, I mean, listen, they were at 4 last week. And I know that people will try to poke holes in the way the game happened. I look at it this way. You know what's scary about South Carolina, Mike? It's been their defense that's been carrying them. And their defense had an off game on Saturday, and what happened? The offense rose to the occasion. Lenoris Sellers is playing out of his mind right now, carrying that football team offensively. Rocket Sanders as well at the running back position. You got to give credit to South Carolina, man. Again, do I think they're the most talented team in the SEC? Are they top to bottom more talented than Georgia? No. But I don't know if there's a team you'd least want to play than South Carolina. I don't think there's a team in the SEC you look at and say, we would rather play anybody else. South Carolina is that team that you look at. Nobody wants a piece of them right now. We'll see if they can finish it off, get to 9-3. They got Wofford this weekend, which will be a win, and then the rivalry showdown with Clemson. But I just think you got to give a lot of credit, man, to what South Carolina's done over the last 4 or 5 weeks or so. And again, there's just nobody hotter in college football than the Gamecocks.
Yeah, I think Shane Beamer should be in the running for SEC Coach of the Year, quite honestly, what he's done. We'll see how they finish out the season. But going back to the power rankings here, Georgia makes the move up from 4. Again, you had them at 6 last week. So with the big win versus Tennessee, you hop them over the Volunteers. The Volunteers fall from 3 to 5. And then rounding this out, Texas A&M at 7, Vandy at 8. Florida makes a big jump in the power rankings from 13.
I think they're
all the way to
dangerous
9.
with DJ Lagway, Mike. I think they are a dangerous football team with DJ Lagway. And you look at what their defense did, 7 sacks against LSU. They're kind of coming into their own as well. Here's the thing I'll say is this, though. I don't want to get caught up too much in recency bias.
Okay.
Because we just saw Florida 2 weeks ago get shellacked by Texas. So it just speaks to the wackiness of this season. I think they caught LSU at a good time from the standpoint of a lot of, coming off the Alabama game. There was a big hangover there, I think. And I think also Garrett Nussmeier is just not playing good football right now. But Florida with DJ Lagway, we saw it against Georgia. That's kind of why you have to throw the Texas game aside because they had Aiden Warner playing that entire game. DJ Lagway, what we saw him do against Georgia, now against LSU. Florida with DJ Lagway's got a chance. They got Ole Miss this weekend. Boy, they could really throw a wrench in the college ball playoff discussion if they can pull another upset.
They absolutely can. Going back here, Auburn falls from 12 to 13, but obviously, the Tigers have a chance to make a move this weekend when they play Texas A&M, and they close with Alabama. So some opportunities left for the Tigers here on the schedule. Rounding out the top 16, you've got Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma as the worst team in the conference. I don't know if you asked any of the Sooners fans if they thought they would be ranked as the worst team in the conference, if they would have said, yeah, I think we're the worst team in the SEC year one.
Yeah, they're still talking about, I saw somebody mentioning, Mike, that they're debating on whether they should start Jackson Arnold or Michael Hawkins going in this game against Alabama. So it's just been a dysfunctional mess throughout the entire season. I mentioned this to you, and I'll openly say this, that Oklahoma's on my shit list, for lack of a better way of putting it. For pick them in that game against Mizzou. They lost to a Brady Cookless Missouri team, and right now I'm not very fond of them. So I mean, again, listen, right now on a neutral field, I don't think they'd beat Kentucky. I don't think they beat Mississippi State. And listen, I know they beat Auburn already, but you give me that game again on a neutral field,
I'm picking Auburn.
Auburn probably finds a way to win that game. So, I mean, you think about how it happened the first time. Auburn probably should have won that football game. I know it's all hypotheticals and everything, but teams get better or worse throughout the season. I think Oklahoma's gotten worse, Mike, honestly. And I think their confidence is shot too.
It's hard. All the injuries obviously catch up to you, and it's again. We knew when we saw their schedule, when their inaugural SEC
Even
schedule,
at full
it was going to be
strength,
tough.
they would have had a tough time getting to 6-6. It's just,
Yeah,
the injury bug. You mentioned that the offensive, futility, if you will. So a lot of things have gone against them.
Yeah, I tweeted it out when I saw their schedule, their 2024 schedule, Chris. I said, good God, what a welcome to the SEC they gave them. Now, let's go back here. And before we move on to talking about the opportunity the Auburn Tigers have, I want to talk about true playoff contenders, right? Our friend Heather Dinich over at ESPN said that she felt like 5 teams could get into the playoff. I no longer feel that way right now with the amount of 2-loss teams. Look, you've got Texas at number 1 in your power rankings. Georgia has had issues turning the ball over to the other team as well as drops. South Carolina jumps up your power rankings. Right now, I wouldn't put them in the playoff conversation, though. What is the most likely team in this group that could have 3 losses and get in? I think that Georgia maybe has a little bit of a good opportunity here if they somehow miss the SEC championship game, but finish with 2 losses. Might that be the best scenario for them?
You could argue so. I will say this, though, Mike. I don't think a loser of the SEC title game is going to miss the playoff. I think that would set a really poor precedent.
Yeah,
I really
for sure.
do. I just, even if you're 10-3, I think as long as you're at that double-digit win mark, I think you're going to be in. I don't think a 9-3 team is getting in the college football playoff. So I understand I have South Carolina third in my power rankings. That doesn't mean I would put them in the playoff discussion, and that upsets a lot of South Carolina fans because they look at, hey, we're hotter than anybody in the country. Look at the way we're playing. Look, we got robbed of the LSU game. The Bama game could have done this. That may all be true, and you may think that. A 9-3 team is not getting in the college football playoff. To your point, Mike, there's too many other 10-2 teams that have earned their way as well that are going to get in. So I would say right now that top 7 in my power rankings, take South Carolina out of it. I think those 6 teams, the teams that are realistically in the college football playoff conversation. And from there, we're going to have some elimination games, right? Texas A&M, that's an elimination game. We're also going to start comparing resumes, right? Tennessee at 10-2 versus Ole Miss at 10-2 versus, Georgia at 10-2 versus what if Texas A&M beats Texas? Is that an eliminator for Texas in regards to playoffs? So there's going to be a lot of resume comparing down the stretch, Mike, and it's going to be a wild and wacky last 2 weeks. There's no question.
I agree. It's going to be really interesting to see how this pans out. I know Ole Miss is really hanging their hats on that Georgia win, but another loss by them, I don't think they're in. I think they can't stomach another loss to get in this playoff.
Yeah, I think it's as simple for Ole Miss. You win out, you're in. You lose another one, you're out. And that's why the Georgia game was so pivotal, Mike. I think that's the one that, and I mentioned to you last week, right, that, I think Ole Miss may have done themselves a favor by, as crazy as it sounds, losing to Kentucky and beating Georgia. Because if the roles are flipped there, we're saying, well, what's their best win? Who have they beaten? And we overlook the Kentucky loss because of the way they dismantled the Georgia Bulldogs. That's what we remember. So, again, I think the team that I think is most likely to get screwed, Mike, if chalk plays out, is Tennessee. And that feels strange to me because they won the head-to-head with Alabama, because I think that's the two we'd be discussing and debating. But I think the committee is going to look at, well, Alabama beat Georgia.
Yeah.
So, and I know Vols fans hate to hear that, but right now I think if things played out as chalk and we're coming to the end of the season and, 4 teams can get in or 5 teams can get in and there's one odd man out, I think it'd probably be Tennessee at this point.
Before we get into the opportunity that the Auburn Tigers have this weekend, I want to thank our friends over at Los Amigos Restaurant. Chris, Los Amigos Restaurant. Go visit them at 1220 Fox Run Ave, Suite 200 in Opelika, Alabama. If you're in the Auburn, Opelika area and you're looking for a good family atmosphere where you can also watch the game is always on at Los Amigos. Politicians, policemen, civil servants, everybody goes into Los Amigos Restaurant looking for a good time, also looking for a good meal. They've got you covered over there. Please visit them again at 1220 Fox Run Ave, Suite 200 in Opelika, Alabama. I want to thank them for sponsoring this segment of the War Report. Auburn welcomes Texas A&M. The last time Texas A&M came to the Plains, It was the battle of like the 3-win teams. And it was a championship-like atmosphere. Cadillac was the interim head coach, Chris, and holy crap, people were like, this is why the SEC is different. You've got two teams in no danger of making a bowl game about to face off, and it was a championship atmosphere on the plains. A lot at stake, I think, for Auburn in this one. If you win, your hopes for a bowl game stay alive. And now you got to clean the slate here over the last 3 games to do it. But what do you see here from Hugh Freeze's squad? They got the ball to Cam Coleman on Saturday. He had 15 catches coming into Saturday, and he logged 8 alone by himself on Saturday versus ULM. Does Auburn have a chance in this game? Simply,
I think absolutely, Mike. I think they have. I think the Vegas spread is reflective of that enough. It opened up, I think, at Texas A&M as a 2-point favorite. I even mentioned, Mike,
is it that close?
It is. I even mentioned when the Vegas spread came out, or excuse me, not the Vegas spread, when the kickoff times came out, Mike. When I saw a week ago that this was going to be a night game at Jordan-Hare, man, that alone I saw as Texas A&M better not think they can sleepwalk through that one, because Auburn is going to come into that game fired up, excited, motivated, chances of making a bowl game on the line. You can't win your next 2 in a row if you don't win this one, right? So,
right.
I mean, I think Auburn's got a great shot. I mean, it's all about, limiting the mistakes, not shooting yourself in the foot. It's going to take, I think, a better coaching job from, say, a Hugh Freeze than we've seen in some of these big games. But if you're telling me, can Auburn win this football game? They absolutely can win this football game, Mike. I mean, listen, Auburn is a solid team that has been masquerading as a terrible team all year.
Yeah.
I think we've all agreed that the reason this season's been so disappointing and so wacky is because this team is so much better than what their record is. Numbers reflect that. Texas A&M, obviously, they come off a big win over New Mexico State. Ho-hum, no big deal. Are they looking ahead, God forbid, of the Texas game? Is that even a possibility? I don't think with a Mike Elko squad they will be. I think Mike Elko has this team locked in. But I tell you this is one of the hardest picks of the week, in my opinion, Mike, because I do think it lines up well for Auburn at home at night. We've seen these venues, right? The way they play into the results of these games. I think the big key is going to be, can DJ Durkin, what type of scheme, what type of plan does he have against a Marcel Reed who's very mobile, very dynamic? If they're able to fluster him, get after him a bit, I think it could be another game where Auburn's defense hang around, keep him in the game. And, if Jarquez Hunter can have a big day, it's going to be tough against that defensive front. You're probably going to need Peyton Thorne to make some plays, bottom line. Maybe 2A Cam Coleman, maybe he makes a difference-making play and Auburn scores a big upset. I think the path to victory is there for the Tigers.
Yeah, it's interesting. Auburn sits with the SEC's second leading rusher in Jarquez Hunter coming into this one, and that's been with limited opportunities. If you look at the leading rushers in the SEC, Dylan Sampson has 1,230 yards on 220 attempts. Jarquez Hunter has 1,015 yards and on only 146 attempts. Chris, he's got 74 more attempts than Jarquez Hunter right now. If you give those carries to Jarquez, I think he's easily leading the SEC in rushing, and he's probably the second or third leading rusher in the country this year. So he's been underutilized so far. I'm looking for Hugh Freeze to lean into Jarquez Hunter. Obviously, Texas A&M is going to have a plan to try to stop him and force Peyton Thorne to beat them with his arm, and that's where Cam Coleman comes in. Now, we saw Cam. I joked on Twitter that this was the please don't transfer offense that they were running for Cam Coleman. We saw them try to get him the ball in a way that we haven't really seen so far, and it was successful on Saturday. Can they replicate some measure of that against Texas A&M, enough at home to keep them honest? I did take a look at the spread. 2.5 points, man. Like, these spreads for Auburn have been close all season. Like, Vegas recognizes that this is a talented Auburn team, even despite the record.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what Vegas identifies, because I'm sure, again, they look at the numbers, and when they're crunching those numbers, and again, they don't build those mansions in the desert off winners' money. So, I mean, it's you look at the numbers and you crunch those, and it doesn't make sense. You're right, what Auburn's record is. There's probably not a team in college football, we're going to argue at the season's end, that left more meat on the bone this year in terms of wins and losses than the Auburn Tigers did. I mean, just missed opportunity after missed opportunity. And I think, Mike, you'd probably agree, and so would Auburn faithful who are all tuned into this. That's probably the thing that scares you most is, yet again, we saw the potential this past weekend, and granted it was ULM, right, back to the competition, but can Auburn make those winning plays late in game? Like, this is probably going to be a close game, and Auburn's just going to have to make some of those crunch time winning plays, do some things, Mike, they just have not done to this point in the season. Can they make those winning plays? Is this the breakout kind of game, quote unquote, for Auburn, or is it just, oh, here we go, big time atmosphere, big time game? It's more of the same from Hugh Freeze and company. That's the big question. So it's really a situation like whoever picks Auburn or doesn't, it's a question like, do you trust Auburn or not in this spot? I think a lot of people are going to have a hard time trusting them, but again, this could be the breakout moment for the Tigers as well. So it's a fascinating matchup from that standpoint. And again, from the A&M perspective, I mean, it's just for them, their college football playoff hopes are on the line. Their SEC championship game hopes are on the line. So both sides have a ton to play for.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot to play for if you're Auburn. You're trying to re-recruit this roster. You're trying to show current recruits that, look, you are still very close to something special on the Plains. We'll see how they do. Chris, before we get out of here, I got to put you on the spot. Give me a score. Give me a winner and a score.
Man, you really are putting me on the spot because, funny enough, I haven't locked one in yet for this, but on the spot, on the fly prediction, I'm going to go Texas A&M. I just, until I see it from Auburn in a game like this, I have to. I know they beat Kentucky. I get that, but Texas A&M's not Kentucky. I think A&M's defensive front, one of the best in the country, one of the best certainly in the conference. I think they're going to be able to get to Peyton Thorne enough and slow down Jarquez Hunter enough to get to Peyton Thorne to force him in a mistake or two. And I just need to see Hugh Freeze and company make those winning plays down the stretch that they have not made. I'll go 27-24 final score. I do think it's a really close game, so A&M will technically cover in that scenario, but I think it's a down-to-the-wire ball game. I think Jordan-Hare is going to be electric, but I got to see Auburn make those winning plays late before I believe it.
Yeah, look, I'm not mad at that. At the end of the day, your doubt is not really in the players on the Plains. It's in the coaching.
A lot of it's Hugh Freeze. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of coaching malpractice. A lot of it. So.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I've been saying it. I think that
maybe even more so, Mike, winning plays, winning calls. Does Auburn have the winning calls late, the winning decisions from the decision makers late to go win the football game? That's the big question.
Now, I will say this. I'm not worried about what DJ Durkin is going to field. I think that he has consistently fielded a winning strategy, and they just need help from their offense on Saturday. If they can get enough, if Auburn can, man, 24 points is a lot for this team offensively this year, I think. So even predicting that, you're predicting them to have one of their better offensive showings, and that's assuming that special teams or defense doesn't add to that point total. I'm with you on this one. I see A&M winning this one right now. I'm open to being wrong. I think it's something like 31-24. Down the stretch, it's going to be, can they, like you said, make the big play, make the right call? We've seen them not be able to do that time and time again so far this season, so I'll be interested to see what they do.
Great night for some, Mike, great night for some Jordan-Hare magic. We hear about it all the time. You know, maybe it's one, and we to that point, we saw A&M a few weeks ago go into Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia, South Carolina, frenzied environment, and get boat raced. So yeah, it's possible. It's doable. The environment can have a big play. So Auburn faithful, show up, be loud. I think you can make an impact in this game.
Chris, before we get out of here, man, I want to thank you for joining me. Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, Mike, it's always a pleasure, man. I appreciate you having me on it. I always look forward to doing this each and every single week. We're at SEC Unfiltered on X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your content, YouTube, podcast, and, of course, our website, secunfiltered.com. And, again, Austin, Texas on the docket for the SEC Unfiltered Tour. So looking forward to getting to the Lone Star State.
Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report with my guy Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.